Hello, welcome to this PHP tutorial. So let's do a short recap on web technologies. We have HTML and CSS, which we use to build interfaces. HTML used to build like the skeleton of your web application, and CSS is used to build this actually used to style this your web skeleton, and then together you have something beautiful when you use HTML and CSS. While JavaScript just comes to add some more interactions on this your web app, whereas SQL is a language for databases and PHP usually is a backend language. PHP or C, C Sharp, C++, Go, Java, Python, etc. There's so many of them as backend languages. So today we're looking at PHP. So let's go straight into what PHP is and how we're going to be using it. So for our requirements, we'll need a code editor, which we're going to use VS Code, and for our browser, we will stick with Brave. It's just a personal choice. If you use Google Chrome, it's going to be the same experience. Mozilla, Firefox, etc. They're going to give you the same result. So for our PHP tutorial, a short recap about PHP. PHP is a backend programming language, so it runs on a server. Here for our server, we're going to use WAMP, given that we're running on a Windows machine. If I should come down here and click, I'm not seeing it here, but it's just because my machine is full and it's kind of disturbing, but we're going to get to it shortly. So we're going to be using WAMP, which stands for Windows, Apache, MySQL, PHP. You could use a micro version of it. There is UWAMP or micro WAMP. You could just download it too. It's going to give you the same thing. Actually, if you're not working on your machine or you're just testing, you could actually use UWAMP. It's smaller in size. It lacks some extensions, but it's good. It works. Or WAMP is heavier. It needs some more extensions to actually run properly. If you're on a Macintosh, you could go for MAMP. If you're on a Linux system like Ubuntu, you could use LAMP. But then you could equally use XAMPP. XAMPP is going to work everywhere, but I did not go for XAMPP because XAMPP seems to be heavier, and I'm having so much going on my machine that I'm not going to go for an alternative that's heavier. Okay, that said, PHP, you can just Google it online. PHP is actually a programming language used by some top sites like Facebook, Slack, those of you who Slack, Wikipedia, and much more. It's easy to understand, and that's just why we're doing it, and then it's equally on the curriculum. So we're going to look at the basics of PHP, and then we'll do another video where we'll go to the advanced stuffs on PHP. So for now, let's focus on the basics. So on these basics, we're going to spend the rest of this time looking at PHP's environment, variables and statements, data types in PHP and what it means, functions, loops and conditions. And then we're going to do a mini project on a calculator. Okay, that's it. Let's move on. So if you actually have WAMP installed, if you're on Windows, you will find you actually be able to access it through, depending on where you've saved it. I am having access to it through my C drive. It has created a folder called WAMP64 because my computer happens to run on 64-bit, and then there's a www folder. I have other projects running there which I will not want to show, so I come straight into the folder holding this project. So we're going to be looking just at PHP for now. So I've actually created a folder called HNG, and there I am in PHP. So I'm going to bring up my text editor, my code editor, and then my browser too. So for my code editor, I'm going to use Visual Studio Code, which when I launch, good, it comes with the project already there. But even if you had another project there, all you do is you click on your project and you drop it there. Given that is this project that is here already, it just opens up. Okay, so how is this code editor going to run? Actually, Visual Studio Code is not a code editor, it's more of an IDE, integrated development environment. So it's going to do much more than edit code. It's going to host your whole project here. You'll be able to see your different files, and then you'll be able to move through smoothly. So if I should come and open PHP, if you can see it's empty. Same here, it's empty. So if I should go ahead and create a file, say index.php, great. The file is created here and you can see it here. So whatever thing you could do to this file here, the same thing is going to happen to the file here. So I think we don't need this anymore. So to replace this, we're going to focus on the editor we'll be using for this project, which should be this here. Using Brave, we're in private mode. Okay, so if I should open this up here, great, we get this. So we're actually having access to this through, if you see this, it's actually the same as localhost. So if I do localhost sudo hnd, the same thing. If I take my mouse over here, you can see it highlighted. So if I open PHP, I get to see this file directly. This is because on the server, the index file is usually loaded by default. So let's say I rename this file to index1. When I come and refresh, I should be able to see index1. Because it is not indexed, it's not going to be loaded by default. So we will go ahead and rename it to index. Great. So it's loaded. So what's the next thing on our, I guess we're here. Great. So for our environment, we need to run PHP on the server, which is going to be WAMP. So we might, it depends. If you have any difficulties on WAMP or you need a short tutorial on that, you could always just notify, and then I'll be able to do another short tutorial on how to start WAMP. Here we'll focus just on PHP. So once you have your WAMP environment running and you can actually access your server through localhost, now you should be able to reach out to the path in which your project is running. So here is my root folder, which is PHP, and my file is index.php. So if I should do index.php, I get the same thing. I'm still following on that same. Given that it's loaded by default, I really don't need to put it. So for our environment, I think we have it clear. Now variables and statements. Now, by the way, this is a PHP file. Yes, for those who have done some HTML, if I should come here and say h1 and I say hello world, yeah, and I come and refresh, yeah, I have some code here, but this code is not actually PHP code. It's definitely HTML code. If you can see, it's not PHP code because to write PHP code we must write it here. So this is where PHP code gets executed. So in the same light, I could come here and I just say echo hello PHP, and then I'll say hello PHP, and then I say hello world. This is in HTML. So PHP actually, the moment you create a file and call it, or we use the extension .php, you can actually run your HTML in it. But be very careful. Should you do this, it becomes an error. This is not actually allowed, because this is actually foreign to PHP. So you must send it outside of PHP for it to run. Nice. So what's a statement? This is a statement in PHP. A statement is actually anything you will write. Usually it could take a line, or it could take more than one line. Should I do this, it's going to read it in the same way, so long as there's nothing obstructing it here. Okay, let me see. We'll look at variables and statements. Now what's a variable? In PHP, a variable could be anything, so but it's defined by a $sign. So if I give a $sign, I give it a name. I could just call it name, by the way, and say hello PHP. So I'm calling my name variable hello PHP. It's not a wonderful name, so I could probably say, given as a greeting, I could just say greeting, and then the greeting becomes a variable, and I can actually come here and call it, let me call it greet. No need adding the ing. So if I come and oops, if I come here and refresh, oh, I missed what did I miss? Oh, my greet was spelled with double. So when I click, I should be able to see it highlight on both, telling me it's the same thing. So you see, nothing has changed. So by the way, let's take off the HTML so that we stay in context. So here we find our hello PHP still being done in the same way. But now there was something. We're having hello PHP. Let's say we wanted to make it look like the HTML we just wrote. We could do this. Now when I refresh, good. You see the HTML syntax is actually being interpreted in PHP. But this time around, it's not in the same way. Remember what we just did? H1. No, this is not going to work. By the way, you can see from its color. Should we save this and refresh? We get a big error here because it does not recognize this here. But if it's actually within quotes, it's going to read and read just fine. But now, one thing you should know too is the double quotes will actually be able to evaluate whatever variable you have within the quotes. But should you use single quotes? It becomes an issue. It's not going to evaluate this variable. It's just going to read the variable as it is. So you see, we get great. It evaluates the HTML, but it does not evaluate the variable. So watch out. Single quotes and double quotes don't really have the same value in PHP. So I think that should be it for PHP. Okay, now by the way, let's end up with one thing. Okay, let's say we're about to greet a person, and this person is Mr. Jax. Let's just use a name, Mr. Jax. So we want to echo out hello. I don't even know this Mr. Jax, Mr. PHP. Let's just say we want to say hello, Mr. PHP. So how we're going to do that here? Now we're going to join these two variables. Usually we do what we call concatenation. So I could actually go here and do this and say person. Here, that should give me hello Mr. PHP. But now if you're in a situation wherein you actually used single quotes, you could actually do this with single quotes too, but this is how you do it. So with double quotes, you really don't stress that much, but with single quotes, you actually have to concatenate it as such. So the moment you're stepping out of PHP to actually get into HTML, you actually do this, and you should get the same result here. Remember, if we do this, we get a funny scenario. Oh, we left a space here. Let's assume it had this. It says all join. So either we're going to put the space here, or put the space here, or we're going to come and put the space here as we just did. And remember, no matter the amount of space you leave here, it's just going to count as one space. You see the space here, so much space, but that's just what we get. Okay, I think that is it for variables and statements. So the next thing we're going to look at now are data types. So data types are very interesting concepts in programming languages, and for the case of PHP, let me just copy it so that we don't move between these two screens all the time. So great. So I'll actually comment it out. This is when you're commenting on one line, and if you're commenting on multiple lines, you actually do this. So I will have it as such. Data types could have a string, could have an integer, you could have a float, could have a boolean, you could have an array. Null, I don't think it's a data type in PHP, but I would like us to know how null works and then an object. Okay, great. So let's see, what are data types? So every variable actually carries something. It could equally carry nothing. If it carries nothing, it's going to be as such null. Reason why we see this guy. So when it carries null, there is an issue. So if we run this, we actually don't see, because it's carrying something, but that thing is nothing, but it's something. That's what null actually means. It's nothing, but it's something. Okay, we'll see how to use null as we go ahead, because null has a value whose value is nothing. Because should we do this, should we comment it out, we get an error because person is not defined. You see, we get an error. But the moment null is assigned to it, it means nothing, but it's a value. Okay, so we can comment that out. So now we equally come to, we have it back the way it was. So person is null, we looked at null, we looked at a string. So a string is actually any series of characters between quotes, be it single quotes or double quotes. So this is a string. So actually I like us to call them by their different data types. Yeah, remember this is a variable and this is its value. So this value is being assigned to this variable. We have a string, we have an integer. So an integer is actually any number, it could be 12, 13, 14, whatever. While a float, for some programming languages, a float is actually a subset of the integer or number data type. So here we have something like 12.5. Let's actually move away from the 12. Let's have 25, 25.75, something like that. Yeah, that's actually what a float is. And then we could have a boolean. Boolean is actually any value. So let's just call it boolean. It's actually any value that is true or false. So it's actually at every point in time it's actually going to either be true or false. We use them so much in conditionals. Here, after the boolean, we have an array. So an array, this is where things start becoming a little bit complicated. An array is very powerful, and at the same time it's a little bit more complex. Okay, let's assume that an array is a bus. So we all know how a bus looks like. A bus is big, and a bus has different seat numbers. So in a bus, we could actually have different people seated in that bus. Okay, now let's go for, we could have Alex sitting on position 1. We could have Bimbia sitting on position 2. We could have Manzi sitting on position 3. And then position 4, let's say it's a number that's sitting there 5, for instance. So an array is actually like a bus carrying different values, and each value has a seat number, has an index. But unlike a bus, I think just like a bus, if a bus has 70 seats, I think the driver's seat is always a 0 seat. I really don't know, but it's the same situation here. The first index is going to be 0. So down here, let's actually comment this out. Down here we're getting this index is 0, this index here is 1, this index here is 2, and this index here is 3. So these are their indices and these are their values. So it's like some sort of a key value pair. Here's the key, here's the value. We'll get to see how they look like shortly. So by the way, a statement in JavaScript, in PHP, sorry, must always end with a semicolon. So if we run this, we'll actually get an error because we don't have our semicolons. Okay, so please remember, me putting a semicolon here has no sense because it's commented out. So the reason why we have to put it here instead. So yeah, this is how an array will look like. And then an object, we won't be focusing so much on OP here. We'll just create a basic object based on our array. So to create that object, all I'll need to do is I'll just come here and call your object on this array. So this is actually what we call type conversion. So our array is going to be converted into an object. Please, we're just looking at data types. We're not using anything as of now. So now let's see how all of this translates. So remember here we could say echo. Okay, we did this echo already, and we had what we had up here. Oops, we're having some more errors. Oh, we don't have these people anymore, so let's actually have this in a row. So echo null, and then we want, if we echo null we get nothing. Yeah, remember null is nothing. So then we want to echo our string. We go to the next time, we say echo string, and you will see, yeah, it echoes our string, but remember our null is before our string. Okay, let's get it from the next echo. So we come to the next echo and echo our integer. What do we realize? We realize that it comes immediately after, so it does not actually go to the next line as our code seems to be doing here. So we need to use some HTML here, and we'll come here and we'll do this. So we create this break. When we create this break, what happens is it actually takes you to the next line. This is just basic HTML. So cool. So the moment I do that, now our integer and everything goes to the next line. So we can do this for our float, and we can do this for our boolean. Great. So in evaluation, it's going to give us true or false, but when reading the value, it's going to give us 1 or 0. So should we write here false? We're going to have 0 on the other end. 0, or it does not even appear. Yeah, good, because if it appears, it will actually mean that it's an integer at that time and no longer a boolean. So let's keep it back to true, but you get to understand why it's showing up as 1. So right up to now, I think it's still not making that much sense. But let's see what happens next. So if we come here and say array, remember I told you an array is really a different type of variable. These are variables carrying values, and as we're looking at data types, we're trying to understand what type of value are these variables carrying. So should I come here and refresh? We get an error. Yes, we're getting an error because a function, this echo, which is expected to call out just a string or an integer, is calling out a series of strings and integers. You see? So who is it calling? It should be calling someone in particular. It can't call out all of them at the same time. So for an array, if I want to get Alex only, remember its index is 0, so I simply come here and I do 0. It's going to tell me Alex. If I want to get Manzi, its index is 2. It's not 2 because I said it's 2. It's the way it's going to number it. So if I should come here even by the way and create another array, an array can carry another array. And in this array, let's assume here we had another name, Mackenzie. And then here we have an array of numbers. Great. What do we get? If I call the array, so this becomes index 3 and you index 4. So if I should call echo 3, let's see what echo 3 will look like. Give us Mackenzie. But now echo 4, what will echo 4 give us? An error again because we're trying to call an array. So please never use an echo on an array, you keep having such an issue. So now, to crown it all, how can we actually get to see these data types and know what the value is and know what to do with this value? So the one thing we can do is we actually come down here and we use a function embedded in PHP called variable DOM. So in variable DOM, what can we do? Let's actually put out all our variables and see what we get. String, integer, float, boolean, and array. Oh, by the way, before we do all of this, let's see something. Let's see. This variable DOM function can actually handle the array without any issue. So see this what it says. Oh, by the way, let's stop using you as well. Let's do this. Great. So what does it say? It says that the array variable is an array. That's the first thing it says. You see on line 30. It's an array. And what does it have? It has on position 0, you can see the same positions I enumerated up here. So the positions are generated automatically by the programming language. Given that PHP is zero based, means the arrays are zero based, starting from zero, because it's actually a CVS language. So we actually get them starting from zero. So we can get 0 Alex, 1 Bimbia, just as we have it here. But then you see, index 4 has another array in it, and it can still tell us an array again, and it gives us the size, means the number of values that array is having. Great. So the moment we know that, that's good for data types. So with data types, your whole objective is to know what type of data, what type of value is your array carrying. The moment you know that, it's going to be very helpful later on. At the moment, we're just defining the various terms and getting to see what and how they look like. So if we come back again to our roadmap, we have not seen our object. Let's see what was our object look like. So for our object, we'll look at our object. Good. You see, it's within the object. You see, on position 4, our object carries an array, and the way you reference an object is a little bit different from the way you're going to reference an array. Yeah, especially in PHP. In JavaScript, most of the times they could be the same. So if you really want to see how both look like, we could do this, and it's going to give us two values. The first value here, we know at position, the first position is the array, and the second position here is the object. We can see them all as such. Remember, this object is having an array, as well as this array could have an object. Great. Oops. Great. So we could have this, where this array is carrying an object. Here we see our object is carrying another object, but just before we converted it, it could carry an array. So we get to see in the mini projects we'll be doing, we get to see how to use all of those. So I'm going to save that, and we end up with this. So great. Let's look at our roadmap. So now we're trying to look at functions. Great. I'll leave everything as it is. So comment this out. Just so that we admire what we've done. So for our null, it tells us it's a null. For our string, it tells us it's a string. Our integer, our float, our boolean, you can actually see their data types written here because we're using variable DOM. So next we look at functions. So what's a function? A function is a small program. A function is a small program that's going to do something over and over. Whenever you call it, it should do that thing. That's a function. So let's assume we're trying to write, for instance, variable DOM is a function. Whenever we call it, it's going to run and do something. Echo equal is a function, but in PHP it's quite confusing just for echo, because usually a function should be of the format function. It should have a name, open braces, and then this. So you have the brackets that open. This bracket should be able to take parameters. It should be able to take variables like A and B, C, D. I mean, you define your variables, you could give them real names, or you just call them A, B. So this is a function. This is a function being defined. So usually we won't call the function name. You should actually describe what it does. So I'll call this function call me. I'll just call it call me, and then I'll not give it any parameters. And then whenever you call this function, what should it say? It should simply echo call me. That's what it's going to do. So if we run our script, the function is not going to run, because yes, it has been defined, but it has not been called. So to call this function, see how variable DOM was called. So it means that somewhere in PHP you have something written like this. With lots of parameters here. The moment you put parameters here, it's going to call it out in a particular way, right? As you can see it here. So the moment we click, you can see it's been highlighted here too. So in that same light, we too can come here and do call me. So here we can call this function, and it should do this. If I do this, most of the times it might override this one, because or it might throw an error like this function has been called before, and we won't want to actually be obstructing anything that's actually supposed to make PHP run normally. So the moment I call me and I save, I should actually be able to see call me being run from here, right? But now in PHP, you should actually call your functions after they have been defined. Great. So we could actually have a function like we actually do this and we say echo 1 plus 2. 1 plus 2. Oops, 2. Great. So if we refresh, we get 3. Yeah, because 1 plus 2 is 3. But now remember, this we're hard coding this value in here. Normally this is not how things will happen, because we should not have a function where whenever we call it, it gives us 3. It does not make much sense. So let's just say we call this function sum. So you should add numbers. You should be able to provide it the numbers you should add, like a and b, and here you should be able to do it the sum of a and the sum of b. So if I come here and I call sum and I give it 1 and 2, it should give me 3. Nothing has changed. But if I should give it 2 and 2, it should give us 4. You see? So now this function is more dynamic. It receives inputs and it gives us an output. But now, not every function should actually run this way, wherein it receives inputs, it evaluates them, and actually echoes it. No, usually it should not echo it, but it should return that value. When it returns that value, it means if I run this, I get no response. But the 4 is being produced. The 4 is being produced, but because we aren't echoing it, we aren't seeing it. So the moment we use echo there, we get that value. So again, this could actually be saved in a variable as such, a variable called sum. This sum is given from this function. You can see from its $sign. So when I come here and I do echo sum, I should be able to get the same value 4. As easy as that. Okay. So I think there's something we omitted here. After functions, we're supposed to look at operators. So what are operators? Operators are, we just started doing them here. The basic calculations we do in primary school, addition, subtraction, and all of that. So let's do something quite interesting. Let's just focus back up here. So I'll copy all of these and take it down here. So let's do something a little bit more complex than this. So I'll call this operation. I'll call this function operation, and I'll call it operation. So at the start, if I say you see the other 4 comes next because it has not actually taken the fact that we've moved on. So if I do this and I actually rolls a line, great. So now here we are. So let me just call this echo operators. Great. Good, we have operators there, but our operators, let's actually give it some heading. Great. The moment we have this, nice. So let's look at operation. So what do I want to do? I want to come here and add operator. I want to add an extra variable here, operator. And I could come down here in operation and I add here plus. And what should I do? Here we're gradually looking at conditionals too. So probably I could take conditionals. So we're looking at conditionals, or we haven't seen conditionals until now. So let's stop this and then look at conditionals first before I do what I want us to do then. So a conditional is actually this. It's actually something that's going to look like this. Great. So this is what a conditional looks like. It's actually going to evaluate a variable, a statement, anything you could have in here, and if that thing is true, it's going to execute whatsoever code is found here. If that thing is false, it's actually going to do this. So let's just say echo do, and then echo do not do. Definitely it's actually going to echo do. Why? It's echoing do because true is always true. For instance, we'll come here and say 1 is equal to 1. Oh, by the way, we'll look at this evaluators too. It's actually true. This is always true, but is 1 equal to 2? 1 is not equal to 2. So it's actually going to be false. Yeah, do not do. It executes this other one. So these are actually evaluators. The different evaluators we have are, we could have this to see if our values are the same. We can have this is to see if our values are the same. But now if we use it 3 times, it's to see if our values are the same and they are of the same data types. Okay, let's actually do it for real. So if I come here and I use 1 and I come and evaluate, it's going to tell us do 1 integer is the same value as 1 string. This is a string, this an integer. Remember, integers, positive or negative, whole numbers only. So this is the same as this. But the moment here I'm evaluating just the value. If I evaluate the type too, so it's evaluating the value and the type, now we get an issue. We get an issue because it's no longer the same thing. Yes, value wise they are the same, but the type is an integer, this type is a string, so it does not actually evaluate to this, it evaluates to this. Great. So that's a short that's all I can say about conditionals, but then we could have more than this. I actually came across something quite interesting. I don't know if I copied it. I think I saw it in PHP somewhere down very quick. We'll actually look at this the AND operator, and those who did some logic. Where do I paste this? Okay, I'll paste it somewhere here so that we keep it in perspective. Great. We have this, and then we have the OR. Great. So good. So up here is the AND, and down here is the OR. Great. I paste it. So what does this mean? It means this when we're having 2 conditions. Remember, this one was true, right? If it's true and we add another condition. So for instance, you have been asked the question, go to the store and buy a pen. If you see a pen, you buy. If it's blue, you buy. So there you're trying to meet up with 2 conditions. Go and buy a blue pen. 1, you have to buy a pen. 2, you have to buy a blue pen. If you don't see that, then you come back. I hope that one resonates. So let's actually do with something real. So we come here and we say gender. We're actually trying to define a person here. So actually let's say person. So this person is going to be an array where is gender is going to be male. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. And probably his age is going to be what? He's going to be what? 15? Cool. So great. We're having a person who has a gender of male and an age of 15. So now let's evaluate something. So if he is the one, we'll say he is the one. So looking for someone, he is the one. And then if it's not it, we'll say he is not the one. We'll do this, we'll say he is not the one. He is the one. Great. So let's try to get this guy's gender. So by the way, this is what we call a multi-dimensional array. Because now we no longer, okay, let's see how it looks like. So I'll come and say variable DOM person. I just want to understand how it looks like. If we run this, it's going to cause us an error, so we can actually do return. Return is going to block the code at this point, so we'll not get any error. Oops, we still got an error. We got an error because we're missing out on something. Oh, yeah, the guy is seeing this as an issue. Remember, it says on line 60, unexpected closing bracket, because you can't just do this empty like that. Good. So please, by the way, pass error. So when PHP is about to run, it goes through the whole script, making sure it does not find a syntax error or a passing error. Passing means trying to evaluate whatever code you've written. And if it finds errors like this, it's a big deal for it, so it just stops. So if I refresh, great. We come here, we realize that what our multi-dimensional array is a little bit different. What does it have? It has gender, string. So now we no longer have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 as keys, but we have defined our keys here. So you see, if I want to get the gender of this person, I simply call person, and then here I say gender, and it's going to tell me that it's a male. As simple as that. So now this is a string that our echo should be able to evaluate. Our echo tells us it's a male. Okay, by the way, adding new braces here or not does not really change that much, but please do not, you never know what updates PHP could do, and remove that. Yeah. So if I should come here and I say if the gender of this person is male, this guy's a male, right? So you can say, hey, he is the one. We are looking at just one condition. But then they say, no, the guy we're looking for should equally have, means you see, the guy we're looking for should be a male and should be less than 17 years old, and then his age should be less than 17, right? So we come and refresh. Good, he is the one. We found someone who is a male and he's less than 17. But if they say no, he should be, if they say he should be, if we want it to be exact, we should say he should be a male and he should be 15 years old. So if we refresh this, he's still the one. But now, there's another value that's not showing. So if I say this, it means he should be a male, but he should not, this means not, he should not be 15, or he's not the one, this is not the guy we're looking for, right? So the AND operator needs this side of the equation, of the statement, to be true, and this side to be true. You see, true, true, your result should be true. But if this side is true and this side is false, it's false. Remember logic? Yeah, if you can't get it, please reach out and comment, and probably refer you to some documentation to read about these different conditions. This should be the AND operator and the OR operator. Yeah. So the same thing happens for OR. So cool. If I come here and I say, so for OR, this is how we're going to express it. So here, see for OR. If it's true, if the first condition is true and the second one is true, it means everything is true. If one is true and the other one is false, it's still true. Means if it's a male or he is age 15, here he's not age 15. Yeah, that's saying he should not be aged 15 because of this. But it's still going to be true. He is the guy. He is the guy because we're using the OR. One of the sides has to be true. If one is true, then it's true. If one is, the two are false, for instance, here let's say he should be a female and he should not be 15, it's going to be false. That one is false. Right? So you can revise your operators, you can reach out too if you need some more, if you need to actually grab that more. Okay, we've seen conditionals. Let's come down here and try to wrap up with our function. We're trying to take it to another level. So okay, our function, guys, so far. So we're going to cut it from up there and bring it down so that we can have it close. So great. If we do this, if we echo our sum, it's still going to be, let's just try to echo the horizontal rule here. So I won't get this thing. So on echo here takes 2 plus 2 and gives us returns the value which we catch here, store it in this variable, and this variable is equal to give us 4. But now we're trying to have an operator here, meaning we'll say if, we could say plus, but we want to make it more general so that English or French the person gets it. It must be a string, by the way, because there is no data type that's that symbol. I think JavaScript is trying to do something like that. So operator, if I come here operator, if our operator is a plus, right? What could I do? Just come here and say sign, right? Say something. So at the start here, I let our sign be positive, plus, right? Or could you leave it to be nothing? If I leave it to be nothing, the thing is, PHP is not a static language. Means if I define PHP as a string, I could later change it to be anything. It's not going to be an issue. Yeah, the same thing with JavaScript, but unlike something like TypeScript, which is just JavaScript with type in it, if this is a string and I change it later on to be an integer, it throws an error. Instead of getting that error, we could just do it this way. So if it's positive, oops, we get it as such. It gives us 4. If it's negative, you simply subtract. So it's going to give us, if we come here and do this negative, it's going to give us 0. Give us 0, yeah. If it's 3, it gives us what, 1. If 3 then it's 5 here, what should it give us? Negative 2. Great. So it works. You can actually go ahead and add more. So here we're using conditionals in the function to actually try to have a function that can actually fit more than one use case. Okay, what does our roadmap say? Our roadmap says we have now to look at do a small project. It's actually going to be a calculator. So at the moment we will stop here, and the next class we're going to do this mini project, and yeah, from there we'll move forward. So if you have any questions, feel free, leave a comment.